The 4th century was defined by the weathered stone of old imperial centers and an increasing sense of turbulence on the horizon. Modern audiences often approach St. Augustine's Confessions as a penitential autobiography, a dramatic diary of a sinner reflecting on his past errors. The text functions as a highly calculated theological treatise designed to dismantle the specific philosophical systems that once competed for Augustine's loyalty. Augustine spent over a decade moving through various fringe sects and rival schools of thought before he began writing this work. His intellectual trajectory moved through the schools of Carthage and Rome, shifting from pagan rhetoric to Manichaeism and later to Neoplatonism before his final turn toward Nicene Christianity. This final theology served as a rigorous, retroactive response to the specific errors he had identified in his own past. To understand the Confessions, we have to analyze it as a piece of intellectual architecture rather than a simple memoir. At the center of this architecture is a fundamental philosophical problem: the origin of evil. If the universe is the product of an omnipresent and entirely good God, sin requires a specific physical point of origin. Augustine's search for this origin eventually led to his doctrine of operative grace. We have to map the specific operating systems of the universe Augustine previously inhabited to see why he found operative grace necessary. His 10 years in rival philosophical systems functioned as the engineering lab where he developed his model of the human condition. At age 18, Augustine aligned himself with the Manichees, a prescribed and secretive sect that was then spreading through North Africa and the Roman world. Manicheanism was built on a foundational doctrine of dualism. In the beginning, there were two independent principles described as good and evil. This system maps the universe into two entirely separate domains of light and darkness. In the Manichean origin story, the dark power invaded the light. The resulting mixture created the material world, effectively trapping particles of light inside the dense, evil matter of human flesh. This model provided a concrete, physical explanation for evil, which appealed directly to a young Augustine's search for clarity. It also shifted the moral weight of sin. By framing evil as an external, physical substance, the blame was cast away from the individual's will. Augustine remained an aspirant in this system for nearly 10 years, waiting for the sect's leaders to address the logical inconsistencies in their cosmology. Manichean dualism offered a cosmic excuse for personal failure, essentially telling Augustine that his will was not responsible for its own actions. After becoming disillusioned with the Manichean leadership, Augustine turned his attention toward Neoplatonist philosophy. Neoplatonism replaced the dualistic model with a radiating source of light, representing God, filling all space. Here, evil is not a physical substance. It is a privation, an absence of light created when a human will turns away from its source. This shift returned the full weight of moral culpability to the individual. But if his will was free to choose the light, Augustine faced a new problem. He found himself unable to actually make that choice. This realization was catalyzed by a public debate in 392 CE with the Manichean Fortunatus. During this debate, Augustine concluded that while the Manichees were wrong about the universe, they were right about the human condition. The will is bound by past habits. Intellectual realization was insufficient. A will too corrupted to save itself could not be rescued by Platonic optimism alone. To demonstrate that the human will is universally bound, Augustine looked back to the very start of human life. He challenged the standard assumption that newborn infants are completely innocent. In Book 1 of the Confessions, he applied a clinical observational method to infant behavior. He recorded a specific observation, noting, "I have myself seen jealousy in a baby and know what it means." He described the child watching a foster brother feeding, noting how the infant would grow pale with envy. This led Augustine to a devastating conclusion. If babies are innocent, it is not for lack of will to do harm, but for lack of strength. He identified a split between internal desire and physical capability. The infant possesses the desire to harm its rival, but lacks the strength to act on it. This observation provided the empirical evidence Augustine needed for his theology of original sin. In this model, humans are not born as neutral agents. We arrive in the world physically powerless, yet already morally compromised. For Augustine, the nursery provided the proof that humanity is flawed from its origin, requiring a rescue from outside the self. If the human will is broken from infancy, intellectual enlightenment cannot resolve the dilemma. Augustine engineering a new theological mechanism to address this brokenness. He called this mechanism operative grace. Operative grace acts as a divine intervention that actively gives birth to a new will. This intervention creates the internal movement toward the good that the corrupted human will cannot generate on its own. This doctrine served as the ultimate intellectual synthesis of Augustine's life. It combined the Manichean recognition of inherent corruption with the Platonic belief in the supremacy of the divine. This cornerstone of Western Christian anthropology originated as a precise engineering fix for the catastrophic metaphysical trap Augustine had mapped over decades. This mechanical framework brings a new clarity to the very first page of the Confessions. The book opens with one of the most recognized lines in the history of theology: "You made us for yourself, and our hearts find no peace until they rest in you." Beyond its poetic quality, this line serves a specific function in Augustine's system. It is the mathematical conclusion of his entire life's work. Since we cannot reach the source of our existence through our own broken will, our natural state is one of perpetual unrest. The Confessions is a masterclass in theological architecture, framing divine grace as the only logical escape from the human condition.